Hello there everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Bo Talks Games. Today I want to talk about the Switch 2 reveal and why I think it is imminent. I am talking within the next month. I think Nintendo will finally announce the Nintendo Switch 2. This is the date, this is the time frame I should say, that I have been predicting for quite a while, and as we've ramped up, as we've gotten closer and closer to September, my belief of it being revealed in September has only gotten stronger. Let's get into it. But of course, if you are new here and you enjoy Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions like this each and every day, I would appreciate you subscribing. But yeah, I do believe that the Switch 2, this mythical console that so many people have been talking about for so long, will be revealed in September. Now, back in May, when Nintendo officially confirmed the Switch successor, they said they would announce it by March 31st, 2025. So we have a deadline. There is a deadline for when Nintendo can announce it. September is pretty much right smack dab in the middle of that time frame. I know a lot of people think they will wait until January or March, and I've even made videos about them potentially waiting until January. And I'm not going to rule out that possibility. I think that is still definitely possible. But after the Nintendo Direct that we just got, the chances of a September reveal for the Switch 2, in my opinion, have basically just skyrocketed to the moon. And there are several reasons for this. Now, this reveal could be September or October, but I do think September specifically makes more sense. Anywhere from September 16th through the 20th, so the third week of September. And while I already believed this to be true, that Nintendo Direct we just got, in my opinion, like, soft confirmed it, almost. Like I said, it's possible this doesn't happen, but that Nintendo Direct was so peculiar, not because of what was in it, although we will talk about that, but why was it in August? Nintendo doesn't do Directs in August. They sometimes do very specific Directs. They sometimes do, like, the Mario Wonder Direct, or the Nintendo Museum Direct, or the Splatoon 3 Direct, but we have never had a Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase and an Indie World in August on the same day. That was such a weird way to do that. If Switch 2 was not getting announced in the next couple of weeks, or at the very least some other major announcement from Nintendo, I guess it could be really anything, but I think for most of us we're expecting the Switch 2 to be the next big news from Nintendo. If that was not getting announced in September, I don't really see any good reason Nintendo would have lumped these two presentations together. They've never done that before. They've never had two presentations in the same day, unless you want to count like a Nintendo Direct and a Smash Bros. Presents or something, right, from Mr. Sakurai. Pizza Tower alone, ending that Indie World, would have been enough to keep Nintendo Twitter buzzing for a day. Adding a partner showcase on top of that was kind of overkill. I cannot think of any logical marketing reason they would have done that unless they were trying to make space for something bigger in September. Now, if you remember, I've been covering on this channel, there was a rumor from a user Brazil over on Famiboards as well as on his podcast that Nintendo had moved up some presentations to August to make space for more Switch 2 announcements and that kind of thing. He never specified that the Switch 2 would be announced in September, October, whatever that would be, but he did say he had heard from his sources Nintendo was moving presentations up to August, which I gotta give him his flowers. That sounds like exactly what happened, because I don't think they planned to do the partner showcase in Indie World on the same day, probably until kind of recently, and now they did have some branded stuff with it where the announcer actually said this is a two-pack showcase, but for the most part, they were pretty standalone presentations. Just a little bit of voiceover was edited in. So while Brazil has been wrong about some things in the past, there is no denying that he was totally right on the money about Nintendo having more presentations in August, which, first of all, no one was even expecting. I think most of us were expecting some sort of Nintendo Direct in September, but the fact that it happened in August, just like he said, right according to plan. So I totally want to give him his flowers. He was right about that. Brazil had even said on his podcast that podcast that they posted that day should be one of the last ones they post before news about the Switch 2 really starts to pop up. So if Brazil was right about them moving presentations up to August, it stands to reason to me that he would likely have some information regarding them doing that because of Switch 2, if that makes sense. So everything's on track for a September, maybe October reveal if they want to mimic exactly what they did with the Switch 1. Maybe they announce it in October. The NX, of course, was announced on, I think, October 20th, 2016. Maybe they do it in October, but I think September, for a few reasons, specifically September 16th through the 20th, I think that is the perfect week to announce this thing. That way, the first week of September, there's room for Zelda and Mario Party previews. I believe we've seen a lot of Nintendo influencers got flown out to Nintendo New York recently, likely for a private demo session for both of these games. Of course, they're both going to be at PAX West, but I do expect there to be some proper previews for Zelda and Mario Party in the next week or two. So that'll be our Nintendo news for the first week of September, and maybe they have something smaller in there, right? I do want to talk about that in just a second. But then that also leaves the second week of September room for a Mario and Luigi Brothership trailer or something along those lines. Since we're not getting a general direct this year, maybe that would be the week we get some Mario and Luigi Brothership info. I think that's kind of the perfect timing. They don't want to wait too long. I think waiting until October doesn't seem right, and I guess barring a Switch 2 reveal, they could do it in the third week of September, but I think first week of September, Zelda and Mario Party previews from press, second week of September, Mario and Luigi Brothership info, and then third week of September, we will get our big Switch 2 reveal. Now, I might make another video about this entirely, but I do think there is totally a possibility that there's something else coming out in November entirely. I made a video a few weeks ago talking about how it feels like something is missing from the Nintendo Switch lineup this year, and specifically regards to how there's no game releasing on the Thursday before Black Friday, like there almost always is, or I shouldn't even say almost always is, there literally always is. Nintendo has not missed that date for the past 24 years, so I might do a separate video talking about that, because I do think it's possible they have some other game still in the pipeline that they haven't announced yet. I don't know what the reasoning would be for why they haven't announced that yet. Maybe it's some sort of casual game that they didn't think would fit into a Nintendo Direct. We saw them announce Famicom Detective Club on Twitter last month in July randomly, so maybe it could be a case like that where they just thought for one reason or another announcing it on Twitter would make more sense than announcing it in the partner showcase, because we know partner showcases can have Nintendo published games. As we saw, Fitness Boxing 3 got announced, and Nintendo's publishing that, but that's coming out in December. So I do think it's honestly pretty likely still, in my opinion, that there is another first-party Nintendo game we don't know about releasing this year. Like I said, I'll do a whole separate video speculating what that might be. So maybe that you could put that announcement in the same week as the Mario and Luigi Brothership info. But most importantly, the reason I'm saying September 16th through the 20th, that is just a week before Zelda releases, which obviously they're not going to want to overshadow the big new Zelda game. I would say potentially their biggest game of the year in terms of like critical potential, right? Like Zelda's going to be a critical darling and potentially Nintendo's only GOTY nominee this year. They're not going to want to announce the Switch 2 days after or days before Zelda releases. I'm not one of those people that thinks, oh, Nintendo's never going to announce this thing because they don't want to step on the toes of this game, that game, X game, Y game, right? But you're not going to announce the Switch 2 the same week as a new Zelda game releasing. That just does not make any sense. Especially when you consider that week is also Tokyo Game Show. So Tokyo Game Show is a huge convention in Japan where a bunch of Japanese developers get together and they show off really cool games and the public gets to play them, and usually there's a ton of game announcements. And this is very important because if they announce the Switch 2 before Tokyo Game Show, then third-party developers can kind of pledge their support and announce their versions for the Switch 2 of their games that week, which if you're Square Enix, if you're Capcom, if you're Koei Tecmo, if you're Bandai Namco, you're going to want to announce these things sooner than later. Let's humor the idea that the Switch 2 was supposed to come out in 2024. I personally don't believe that, but let's say that was the case. You have to imagine Bandai Namco had a version of Dragon Ball Sparking Zero ready to go, right? You have to imagine that's a game that was probably going to come to the Switch 2 at release or very near release. That version of the game didn't get erased from existence, it still exists. With that game coming out in October, you would think, okay, well, if they announce the Switch 2, and just using this as an example, but if they announce the Switch 2 now, then at the very least, Bandai Namco can say, hey, Sparking Zero, coming to Switch 2. If you want it there, it's coming there. And I think that applies for a lot of games coming out over the next few months. I've talked a lot about Monster Hunter Wilds. That does not have a release date yet, which also I find very peculiar. People have played Monster Hunter Wilds from Capcom, and that's going to be at TGS, of course. I find that one extremely peculiar that it doesn't have a release date. I think Capcom's absolutely waiting to put a date on that game for when the Switch 2 is announced, because Capcom has been very, very good over the past couple of years when it comes to announcing a game and usually having a release date for that game as soon as we see the title card for the first time. So the fact that Monster Hunter Wilds was announced back in December, or maybe even June last year, it's been a while since it was announced. The fact that it was announced so long ago and people have actually played the game, we're getting like daily updates on all the different, weapon types. The fact that that's all true, and we haven't gotten a release date yet, I find very peculiar, and it makes it definitely feel like they're waiting for some sort of Nintendo movement regarding the Switch 2. That's my take on it. When I was watching Gamescom Opening Night Live, the Jeff Keighley event, and they showed a new trailer for Monster Hunter Wilds, but it did not have a release date at the end, a light bulb went off my brain, and I was like, that's really weird. So I think getting this thing announced before TGS is crucial, especially since Nintendo is going to want to keep cultivating these third-party relationships. And as we've seen throughout the Switch generation, yes, the Switch started off very strong where Nintendo seemingly paid for, Skyrim to come to Switch, or maybe even Doom, because they actually published those games physically on the platform. So there was certainly some deal they worked out with Bethesda, but then there was also a bunch of other third parties that Nintendo clearly courted, like CD Projekt Red with Witcher 3, right? But then as the generation has gone on, we started getting partner showcases, which have slowly become a major presentation that Nintendo does multiple times a year. We saw them a lot during COVID in 2020, but then even in 2022, we had a major partner showcase that announced all the Persona games, Pac-Man World Repack. There was a ton of stuff in that showcase, Nier Automata. And then this year, we've had two now, back in February and now in August. Partner showcase, while some people view that as a negative thing, I view that as a totally positive thing, because it means that Nintendo is still cultivating those relationships, and it means that they will give their third-party developers and publishers a spotlight, a place to shine where they won't get overshadowed by the first-party stuff. And as somebody who plays a lot of third-party games, especially Japanese third-party games, I think that is fantastic. So if they're still cultivating those relationships, I'm sure, Capcom, Square Enix, Koei Tecmo, all these developers, right, and publishers, I'm sure they told them, like, hey, you should announce it before TGS. That would just make a lot of sense. Because if that partner showcase yesterday taught us anything, while yes, most Japanese third parties are still supporting Switch, we saw a new Atelier game from Koei Tecmo, we saw a Tales of remaster from Bandai Namco, we saw a new Capcom Fighting Collection from Capcom, right? If that partner showcase taught us anything, though, while yes, they're still supporting the Switch with remakes and remasters, the new games, for the most part, are clearly being saved for the next console. And I mean, just imagine if we get some sort of big Switch 2 event in the third week of September, right? Nintendo announces a couple first-party games, maybe not everything, right? Maybe they have a bigger blowout in January like we had back in 2017. But let's say we get like a nice 30-minute Nintendo Direct, and it has the Switch 2 in it, and it has, 3 or 4 first-party games, and a couple third-party things, like exclusives that Nintendo's paying for, like a new Octopath or whatever, right? Bravely Third, if you want to predict that, which I'm actually surprised wasn't in the partner showcase. Let's say they do that. Then in January, they have a bigger presentation with even more first-party stuff. But then in between, at TGS, a bunch of third parties can come out and say, hey, look at this, look at that. And maybe they even do another partner showcase before the year is over to let those third-party developers really come out and be like, hey, we're supporting the Switch 2. Here's what we're bringing. This is our plan. We're porting all these old games. We're bringing all these new games. I just feel like that makes total sense. Like I said, maybe this could happen in October. Maybe they will reveal the Switch 2 in October. But with how empty September is right now, the fact that they move those presentations seemingly just out of the way into August, that tells me something is up. That tells me they are prepping to announce this thing very, very soon. So while it might feel unreal to expect a major Nintendo presentation so soon after we just got that partner showcase, and while it might feel a little crazy to think that after so long, so many years of speculation and rumors, it might feel a little weird that we're actually talking about this thing happening in a couple of weeks, I'm putting my money down. I'm putting my money down on a mid-September reveal for the Switch 2. I really do think that makes the most sense. And if it doesn't happen, then honestly, like I'm saying, yeah, October's a chance, and there's always a chance it could happen in October. But if it doesn't happen in September, at that point, honestly, just wait until January. Because I feel like specifically announcing it before TGS just makes so much sense. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. What do you think the odds of a Switch 2 reveal in the coming weeks are? I've gotten a lot of comments already, people being like, yeah, I totally agree. But I've also seen some detractors saying, no, I think they'll wait longer, this and that. I saw a couple comments being like, oh, I think there's going to be a regular Nintendo Direct still in September to announce some first-party games and detail Mario and Luigi. I mean, anything's possible, right? We are in uncharted territory getting a partner showcase at the very end of August. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Either way, it's going to be an exciting time over the next couple of weeks covering all of this and reacting to it and just talking about it because, the summer, not a drought, right? Like, there was exciting stuff to talk over the summer. Of course, Emio, the Smiling Man, kind of kept us busy for a little bit there. That was a fun little teaser they did for that, but I'm excited for this big ramp up of news, we'll say. So let me know your thoughts. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussion, theories, speculation, all of that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. Check out my other channel at It's Amiibo. And until next time, folks, peace.